The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched out like a vast bowl carved from black stone and starlight. Hundreds of seats curved around the central speaking platform, where Ambassador Jake Morrison now stood. The human looked small against the massive architecture that had been built to impress and intimidate visitors from across the galaxy. His simple gray uniform stood out among the elaborate robes and exotic forms of the alien delegates who filled the chamber. Council Prime Zethkar leaned forward in his elevated seat. The Vorthon leader's four arms gestured with practiced authority, while his jeweled carapace caught the artificial light. His voice echoed through the translation systems that turned his clicking speech into words every species could understand. Ambassador Morrison, you have requested this emergency session to address your species' concerns about the colonial expansion restrictions. The Council is prepared to listen to reasonable proposals for compromise. Jake Morrison touched the small device clipped to his collar. The quantum communicator would send his words instantly across human space the moment he activated it. Every human colony, every ship, every station would hear what he was about to say. He had practiced these words for months, but now that the moment had arrived, they felt heavy on his tongue. Council Prime Zethkar and honored delegates of the Galactic Council, Morrison began. His voice was steady and clear. I stand before you today not to negotiate or compromise, but to deliver a final message from the United Colonies of Humanity. A ripple of whispers moved through the chamber. Several delegates adjusted their translation devices, thinking they had misheard. Ambassador Lyra Voss of the Altarian Republic sat up straighter in her crystalline chair. Her purple skin shifted color slightly, which Morrison had learned indicated surprise or concern among her people. Morrison continued without pause. 3 months ago, this council voted to restrict human expansion into the Kepler, Sigma, and Tau Ceti regions. The official reason given was that humanity shows aggressive colonial tendencies and lacks sufficient technological maturity to handle frontier worlds responsibly. Zethkar's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. Ambassador Morrison, these restrictions were put in place for the good of galactic stability. Your species has only been part of our community for 40 years. Other races have waited centuries for such expansion rights. The Council has made its position clear, Morrison replied. Now humanity will make ours equally clear. He pressed the activation stud on his communicator. Across human space, emergency broadcasts began transmitting to every receiver. Effective immediately, the United Colonies of Humanity formally withdraws from all treaties, agreements, and protocols with the Galactic Council and its member species. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien voices. Delegates turned to each, other in confusion and disbelief. Some laughed, thinking this was some kind of human joke or negotiating tactic. Others demanded translation clarification, sure that the words had been incorrectly converted. Zethkar raised all four arms, calling for silence. When the noise died down, he spoke with the patronizing tone of an adult addressing a difficult child. Ambassador Morrison, surely you cannot be serious. Humanity depends on galactic trade for essential resources. Your colonies would face severe hardships without council support and protection. Morrison reached into his jacket and pulled out a data pad. He held it up so the chamber's recording systems could capture it clearly. This device contains the complete withdrawal documentation, including the termination of all trade agreements, shipping contracts, military cooperation pacts, and diplomatic protocols. Every human colony has been notified and will implement these changes within 72 hours. Captain Rick Barnes stood up from his seat in the human delegation section. The military attaché had remained silent throughout the session, but now his presence seemed to fill the space around him. His hand rested casually on the grip of a weapon that none of the aliens recognized. The design was sleek and obviously advanced far beyond the standard energy pistols most Council security forces carried. Delegate Corkshigh of the Metallic Consortium spoke up. His voice sounded like grinding gears through the translator. "This is madness. Human colonies cannot survive without imported energy cells, atmospheric processors, and quantum computers. You will be back begging for readmission within months." Morrison smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. It was not a friendly expression. "Delegate Corkshigh, you are operating under several false assumptions. The first is that humanity has been dependent on your technology. The second is that we have been honest about our capabilities during our time in this council." Barnes stepped forward and placed a small cylindrical device on the speaking platform. It was no larger than a human thumb, but it began projecting a three-dimensional map of local space. The projection showed human colonies marked in blue while council worlds appeared as red dots. Green lines connected the human worlds in a complex network that had not existed in any previous council surveys. "What you are seeing," Morrison explained, "is the quantum communications grid that has connected all human settlements for the past 18 months. Every human world can now communicate instantaneously regardless of distance. We no longer need the Council's relay stations or communication protocols." The projection zoomed in on several human colonies. Instead of the modest settlements, the Council expected to see the images revealed massive industrial complexes, defensive installations, and shipyards that dwarfed anything in Council space. Ships moved between the colonies in formations that spoke of military precision and technological advancement. Ambassador Voss finally found her voice. "When did you build all of this? Our intelligence services monitor human space regularly." "Your intelligence services see what we want them to see," Barnes replied. "Every survey ship, every trade delegation, every cultural exchange has been carefully managed to show you exactly the level of development we wanted you to believe existed." Morrison deactivated the projector and picked up the device. "For 40 years, humanity has been the eager student learning everything you were willing to teach. We studied your technologies, your military tactics, your political systems, and your economic structures. But we were never just students. We were preparing." The chamber fell silent. Even the environmental systems seemed to quiet as the weight of Morrison's words settled over the assembled delegates. Council Prime Zethkar's carapace had shifted from its normal golden color to a darker hue that indicated deep concern among his species. "You speak as if this withdrawal was planned from the beginning," Zethkar said slowly. "Not from the beginning," Morrison admitted. "But we learned quickly that the Council views newer species as junior partners rather than equals. Every proposal we made was modified or delayed. Every expansion request was scrutinized while older members received automatic approval for similar projects. We realized that waiting for acceptance would take centuries we did not wish to spend." Barnes checked his chronometer and nodded to Morrison. The ambassador straightened his uniform and looked directly at each section of the chamber. "In exactly 6 hours, all human facilities will implement security protocols that will make further contact impossible without our explicit invitation. Any ship approaching human space without proper authorization will be turned away. Any attempt to force entry will be considered an act of war." The implications hit the delegates like a physical blow. Several species had significant trade relationships with human colonies. The economic disruption alone would cause serious problems, But the military implications were even more concerning. If humans had truly developed advanced technology in secret, their defensive capabilities were completely unknown. Morrison turned to leave the platform, but paused at the edge. The United Colonies of Humanity thanks the Galactic Council for the education we have received during our membership. We have learned valuable lessons about cooperation, compromise, and the importance of self-reliance. We now choose to apply those lessons independently. As Morrison and Barnes walked toward the chamber's exit, the assembled delegates remained frozen in their seats. No one seemed to know how to respond to a situation that had no precedent in Council history. Species had been expelled for violations or misconduct, but no member had ever voluntarily withdrawn with such finality. The two humans reached the transport bay where their ship waited. The UHS Liberty was a sleek vessel that looked deceptively similar to other Council designs, but Morrison knew that appearances could be deceiving. The ship's quantum drive could outrun anything the Council possessed, and its defensive systems had been tested against simulations of every known weapon type. As they boarded, Barnes activated his own communicator. "Control, this is Barnes. Execute. Protocol 7. All stations confirm ready status for implementation." Morrison took one last look at Nexus Prime through the ship's viewport. The massive station had been the center of galactic civilization for over 1,000 years. Its gleaming towers and docking bays represented the combined achievement of dozens of species working together. But it also represented bureaucracy limitations and the casual dismissal of human potential. The Liberty undocked smoothly and turned toward the edge of Council space. Director Lisa Park stood in the observation deck of Terra Station looking down at Earth's blue marble surface. The planet seemed peaceful from this height, but she knew that every continent buzzed with activity as humanity implemented the largest coordinated operation in their history. Her reflection stared back from the reinforced viewport, showing a woman who had aged years in the past few weeks. "Director, the final colony reports are coming in," her aide announced from behind her. "All settlements have confirmed Protocol 7. Implementation." Lisa turned away from Earth and walked to the Central Command Center. Holographic displays showed the status of every human world in real time, thanks to Dr. Nina Walsh's quantum communication network. Green indicators marked colonies that had completed their security upgrades. Yellow showed worlds still in transition. There were no red markers. Every human settlement had followed the withdrawal plan perfectly. General Adam Cole looked up from a tactical display as Lisa approached. His weathered face showed satisfaction mixed with tension. "The Council is still trying to contact our colonies through standard channels. Their messages are being recorded but not acknowledged. So far they seem more confused than angry." "What about their intelligence ships?" Lisa asked. "That's where things get interesting," Cole replied with a slight smile. 3 Vorthon scout vessels tried to approach the New Geneva system yesterday. Our early warning grid detected them while they were still 2 light hours out. By the time they reached scanning range, we had already activated the interference fields. Lisa pulled up the New Geneva system display. What had once appeared to Council surveys as a single agricultural colony with basic infrastructure now showed its true nature. Massive orbital platforms surrounded the primary world, while defensive satellites formed overlapping protection grids. Industrial complexes on the planet's surface churned out equipment and supplies at rates that exceeded most Council worlds. "What did the scouts see?" she asked. "Exactly what we wanted them to see," Cole answered. "Empty space where our platforms should be, and sensor readings that match their old survey data. The stealth technology is working perfectly." Dr. Walsh materialized on the command deck through a holographic projector. She was physically located on Luna Base, but the quantum communication system made distance irrelevant. Her excited expression suggested good news. "Lisa, I have updates from the outer colonies. The frontier defense grid is now fully operational." The display shifted to show human space from a strategic perspective. Hundreds of worlds and stations were connected by invisible lines representing instantaneous communication links. But more. Importantly, defensive installations that had been built in secret over the past 2 years formed interlocking fields of protection around every human settlement. "How are the Council's trade partners reacting?" Lisa asked. Walsh's expression became more serious. "That's where we're seeing the first real impact. The Metallic Consortium has lost nearly 30% of their rare earth imports. The Altarian Republic is facing food shortages because they relied heavily on our agricultural exports. Several mining corporations are requesting emergency council sessions to address the supply disruptions." Commander Sam Tucker's image appeared alongside Walsh's projection. He was speaking from the bridge of the UHS Defender somewhere in the outer territories. "Director Park, we're monitoring increased council patrol activity along our borders. They're not approaching our systems, but they're definitely trying to gather intelligence about our capabilities." Lisa studied the reports flowing across her screens. The withdrawal was proceeding exactly as planned, but she knew the easy part was over. Soon, the council would move beyond confusion and begin taking action. "Sam, what's the status of the convoy routes?" "All human shipping has been rerouted through our internal networks," Tucker replied. "We're no longer using any council trade lanes or refueling stations. The quantum drive technology is allowing us to reach destinations faster than council ships while avoiding their monitoring systems entirely." General Cole highlighted a section of space near the galactic core. "We're also seeing something unexpected. 3 independent worlds that aren't council members have sent diplomatic inquiries asking about establishing trade relationships directly with human colonies." This was news that Lisa hadn't anticipated. The withdrawal plan had focused on breaking free from council oversight, but they hadn't expected other species to show immediate interest in bypassing council authority. "What kind of inquiries?" "The hegemony worlds are interested in our manufacturing capabilities," Cole explained. "They've been dealing with council trade restrictions for decades and see us as a potential alternative. The Free Traders Union wants to establish shipping agreements that don't require council approval or oversight." Dr. Walsh leaned forward in her projection. "This could be exactly what we hoped for. If other species start conducting independent diplomacy with us, it undermines the Council's claim to represent galactic civilization." Lisa walked back to the viewport and looked down at Earth again. Somewhere in the council chambers on Nexus Prime, alien delegates were probably arguing about how to respond to humanity's withdrawal. They would be analyzing trade data, trying to assess human military capabilities, and debating whether to use economic pressure or military threats. "Nina, show me the economic impact projections," she requested. The display changed to show galactic trade flows before and after the human withdrawal. The gaps were significant. Human colonies had become major suppliers of rare minerals, advanced electronics, and food products. Several council worlds faced immediate shortages, while others would experience economic disruption within months. "The beauty of our position," Walsh explained, "is that we were never dependent on imports for survival. Everything we bought from council species was either luxury items or materials we could produce ourselves with enough time and effort. But several council worlds genuinely need what we were providing." Commander Tucker's voice carried a note of concern. "Director, there's something else you need to know." We've detected at least 12 Council intelligence vessels attempting to penetrate our communication networks. They're trying to intercept our quantum transmissions. Any success? Lisa asked. None, Tucker replied with satisfaction. The encryption protocols are holding perfectly. Even if they could intercept the signals, they wouldn't be able to decode them without access to our quantum keys. General Cole pulled up another display showing Council military movements. We're seeing increased activity around their major fleet bases, nothing that looks like immediate preparation for conflict, but they're definitely conducting readiness exercises. Lisa considered the implications. The Council had never faced a situation like this before. In their 1,000-year history, member species had occasionally been expelled for violations or misconduct, but no group had ever achieved complete independence through superior preparation and technology. "What's our next phase timeline?" she asked. Dr. Walsh consulted her data streams. Phase 2 completion is scheduled for 6 weeks from now. All colonies will have full defensive capabilities operational, and our industrial infrastructure will be producing surplus equipment for export to non-Council species. The plan was ambitious, but Lisa had watched humanity accomplish impossible things before. During their first contact with the Council 40 years ago, humans had been barely capable of interplanetary travel. Now they possessed technology that surpassed anything the galaxy had seen. "There's one more development," General Cole said quietly. Ambassador Morrison reports that Council Prime Zethkar has called for an emergency session to discuss the human situation. Intelligence suggests they're considering economic sanctions. Lisa almost laughed. Sanctions against a species that just demonstrated complete economic independence. Let them try. The truth was that humanity had been preparing for exactly this scenario. Every essential resource, every critical technology, every strategic material had been secured through human-controlled sources. The Council could cut off all trade, and it would inconvenience human colonies for perhaps a few months, while alternative supply chains expanded to meet demand. Commander Tucker's image flickered as his signal updated. Director, we're also receiving increased contact attempts from human civilians living on Council worlds. They want to know if they should return to human space. This was a complication Lisa had hoped to avoid. Thousands of humans lived and worked throughout Council territory as researchers, diplomats, traders, and students. The withdrawal would put them in an awkward position. Tell them that any human citizen is welcome to return to human space, she decided, but also make it clear that those who choose to remain will not be abandoned. We'll find ways to maintain contact and provide support if needed. Dr. Walsh nodded approvingly. That should help counter any Council propaganda claiming that we're abandoning our people. The command center buzzed with quiet efficiency as staff members monitored hundreds of data streams from across human space. Every colony reported smooth implementation of security protocols. Industrial production was actually increasing as resources were redirected from Council trade to internal development. Lisa looked at the main display showing human space as a network of connected worlds defended by technology the Council didn't understand and couldn't counter. Ambassador Krixtall adjusted his environmental suit as the Zephyrian diplomatic vessel approached Kepler Station. Through the viewport, he could see the massive research facility that had once represented the best of human and alien cooperation. The station appeared unchanged from their last visit 6 months ago, but something felt different. The usual stream of ships moving to and from the docking bays had disappeared. "Ambassador, we're receiving an automated message," his pilot announced. "Kepler Station acknowledges our approach and has assigned us Docking Bay 7, but they're also transmitting something else." Krixtall took the communication device and listened to the translation. A human voice spoke with polite formality. "Welcome to Kepler Station. Please be advised that all non-human personnel must complete departure procedures within 72 hours of arrival. Failure to comply will result in mandatory escort to the nearest council facility." The words made no sense to Crixtall. Kepler Station housed one of the galaxy's most important research projects studying quantum mechanics and faster-than-light communication. Over half the staff were non-human scientists from dozens of species. The station couldn't possibly function without them. "Pilot, contact the station directly," he ordered. "I need to speak with Dr. Ben Carter immediately." "Ambassador, I'm trying, but they're not responding to standard diplomatic frequencies. The only communication channel available is the automated greeting system." Crixtall felt his gill slits flutter with anxiety. The Zephyrian delegation had come to Kepler Station specifically to negotiate with humans in a more comfortable setting than the formal council chambers. The station was jointly operated and theoretically neutral territory where reasonable discussions could take place. Their ship docked smoothly in the assigned bay, but Crixtall noticed immediately that the docking procedures were different. Automated systems guided them through the process without any human technicians visible. The airlock sealed and pressurized normally, but when the doors opened, Crixtall faced something he had never seen before. The docking bay was completely empty, except for 3 humans in what appeared to be military uniforms. The usual crowd of mixed species workers, researchers, and visitors had vanished. The walls showed new installations that looked like weapon systems or sensors. The lighting was brighter and somehow more harsh than he remembered. Colonel Kate Murphy stepped forward and offered a polite nod. "Ambassador Crixtall, welcome to Kepler Station. I'm Colonel Murphy, Station Security. Dr. Carter is waiting to meet with you in Conference Room Alpha." The walk through the station corridors confirmed Crixtall's growing unease. Kepler Station had been transformed from a bustling research facility into something that resembled a military installation. Human personnel moved with purpose and efficiency, but the casual mixing of species that had characterized the station was gone. They passed laboratories that had once housed joint research teams. Now humans worked alone behind transparent barriers that hadn't existed before. The equipment visible through the barriers was unfamiliar and obviously advanced far beyond anything Crixtall had seen during previous visits. Dr. Carter waded in, the conference room wearing the same friendly smile that had made him popular among alien researchers. But his clothing had changed from the casual research attire to a formal uniform that suggested military organization. The room itself felt larger because the usual mixed-species furniture had been replaced with human-scaled equipment. "Ambassador, Crixtall, please have a seat," Carter said, gesturing to a chair that had been adjusted for Zephyrian physiology. "I apologize for the changes you're seeing, but recent developments have required us to implement new security protocols." Crixtall settled into the chair and activated his translation device. "Dr. Carter, I confess that I don't understand what has happened here. Where are the Altarian research teams? What about the Vorthan engineering staff? This station was a joint venture between 7 different species." Carter's smile remained, but his eyes showed something harder. "All non-human personnel have been relocated to appropriate facilities within Council space. They were provided transportation and compensation for the inconvenience. The research they were conducting here will continue at other locations under Council supervision." "But the Quantum Communication Project," Crixtall protested. "Dr. Vexhai was leading breakthrough research into instantaneous data transmission. That work cannot simply be moved to another facility." "Ambassador, the quantum communication research has been completed," Carter replied calmly. Dr. Vexhai's theoretical work was very helpful, but we've moved beyond the experimental phase into practical application. Crixtal felt his breathing apparatus flutter more rapidly. Completed? That's impossible. The project timeline showed at least 5 more years of development needed before any practical applications could be achieved. Carter touched a control pad on the table, and the room's walls became transparent, revealing the interior of the station. Crixtal could see levels of activity and construction that defied belief. Massive new sections had been added to the station's structure. Equipment that he couldn't identify filled spaces that had been empty storage areas during his last visit. What you're seeing is the result of human engineering combined with technologies we developed independently, Carter explained. The research conducted here was valuable, but it represented only a small portion of our overall development program. Engineer Tony Rodriguez entered the conference room, carrying a device that looked deceptively simple. "Dr. Carter, the demonstration equipment is ready." Crixtal watched as Rodriguez placed the device on the table. It was no larger than a standard data pad, but it projected a 3-dimensional map of local space. The display showed Kepler Station, surrounded by ships that appeared to be invisible to normal sensors. "Ambassador, what you're seeing is our current defensive fleet," Carter said. 12 vessels using stealth technology that makes them undetectable to Council scanning systems. Each ship carries weapons that can disable any known Council vessel without causing permanent damage. The implications hit Crixtal like a physical blow. Kepler Station wasn't just a research facility anymore. It was a military installation defended by technology that surpassed anything the Council possessed. How is this possible? Human technology was considered advanced but not superior to Council capabilities. Rodriguez smiled and touched another control. The display zoomed out to show dozens of similar installations scattered throughout human space. "Ambassador, we've been somewhat modest about our actual capabilities. The technology you're seeing represents years of development that we kept classified for security reasons." Crixtal realized that his diplomatic mission had become something entirely different. He had come to negotiate with humans who needed Council support and guidance. Instead, he was facing a species that had achieved technological independence, while maintaining the illusion of junior partnership status. "Dr. Carter, I must ask directly," he said carefully. "Is humanity declaring war on the Galactic Council?" Carter's expression became more serious. "Ambassador, humanity seeks no conflict with any species, but we will no longer accept Council authority over human affairs. Any attempt to force us back into compliance will be met with appropriate defensive measures." Rodriguez activated another device, and suddenly Crixtal felt his personal communicator shut down. His ship's communication systems went offline. The translation device continued working, but all external connections had been severed. "What have you done?" "We've demonstrated our electronic warfare capabilities," Rodriguez explained. "Your ship's engines are still functional and life support systems are unaffected. But all communication and navigation systems are temporarily disabled." Colonel Murphy spoke for the first time since entering the conference room. "Ambassador, this is a courtesy demonstration. We could have disabled your ship's systems while you were still approaching the station. Instead, we allowed you to dock safely and are showing you what we're capable of in a controlled environment." Crixtal felt panic rising in his throat. His ship was completely helpless, and he was trapped on a station that had become an alien fortress. "This is an act of war against a diplomatic mission." "No, Ambassador. This is a demonstration of our commitment to independence," Carter replied. "Your ship's systems will be restored when you're ready to depart." Your crew is safe and comfortable in our guest quarters. But you need to understand that the relationship between humanity and the Council has changed permanently. Rodriguez touched his device again, and Krixtal felt his ship's systems come back online. His communicator began receiving status reports from his pilot confirming that all systems were functional. The demonstration had lasted less than 5 minutes, but it proved that humans could neutralize any Council vessel at will. "Ambassador, I want you to return to the Council with a message," Carter continued. "Humanity respects the right of all species to govern themselves as they choose. We expect the same respect in return. Any Council ship that approaches human space without permission will be turned away. Any attempt to use force will be met with force." Krixtal struggled to process what he had experienced. The friendly research station where aliens and humans worked together had become a demonstration of human military superiority. Council Prime Zethkar struck the ceremonial gong with all 4 arms simultaneously. The deep metallic sound echoed through the emergency session chamber, but failed to quiet the chaos that had erupted among the assembled delegates. 6 weeks had passed since humanity's withdrawal, and the carefully maintained order of galactic civilization was crumbling. Ambassador Lyra Voss of the Altarian Republic stood at her speaking platform with her skin showing the deep purple coloration that indicated extreme stress among her people. "Council Prime, the food shortage situation on Altair 7 has reached critical levels. 3 million citizens face malnutrition within the next month if we cannot secure alternative agricultural supplies." Economic Minister Vera Lynn activated her translation device with obvious frustration. "The Altarian situation is not unique. The Metallic Consortium has lost 38% of rare earth imports. The Zephyrian Trade Federation reports manufacturing delays that will cost billions of credits. The economic impact of human withdrawal is spreading throughout Council. Space." Zethkar's carapace had shifted to the dark bronze coloration that indicated deep concern among Vorthon leadership. The Council Prime had governed galactic affairs for over 2 decades, but he had never faced a crisis like this. Member species were demanding action, while intelligence reports suggested that military intervention might be impossible. Admiral Thexmore materialized through holographic projection from the Council Fleet headquarters. His massive frame dominated the display as he delivered his assessment with military precision. "Council Prime, I must report that our military capabilities may be insufficient to force human compliance with Council authority." The chamber erupted again. Delegates from dozens of species shouted questions and accusations, while translation systems struggled to keep pace with overlapping conversations. The idea that the Council fleet could not handle a single member species was unthinkable to most representatives. Intelligence Director Quindar stepped forward carrying data pads that contained information no one wanted to hear. Her multiple eyes scanned the assembly before she began speaking in the measured tones that had made her reputation as the galaxy's most reliable intelligence analyst. "Honored delegates, the intelligence assessment of human capabilities has been completed," she announced. "The results indicate that humanity has achieved technological superiority in several critical areas, including faster-than-light travel quantum communication and defensive systems." Zethkar leaned forward in his elevated seat. "Director Quindar, please explain how a species that joined our community only 40 years ago could have developed such capabilities without our knowledge." Quindar activated a holographic display that showed the layout of human space. Instead of the modest colonial settlements that Council surveys had reported, the display revealed massive industrial complexes, defensive installations, and shipyards that rivaled anything in the galactic core. Council Prime, it appears that humanity has been conducting a systematic deception operation for the past 2 decades, she explained. Every survey mission, every trade delegation, and every cultural exchange was carefully managed to show us exactly what they wanted us to see. Admiral Thexmore's projection flickered as he transmitted additional data to the main display. Our military analysis suggests that human defensive capabilities exceed our offensive potential by a significant margin. Any attempt to force them back into compliance would likely result in the destruction of our expedition fleet. The implications sent shock waves through the assembled delegates. The Council fleet represented the combined military might of over 50 species. It had maintained galactic peace for centuries and was considered invincible. The idea that humans could defeat it was beyond most delegates' ability to comprehend. Delegate Mortix of the Silicon Coalition raised his crystalline appendage to request recognition. Intelligence Director, if human technology is so advanced, why did they remain in the Council for 40 years? What did they gain from maintaining the deception? Quindar consulted her datapads before answering. Analysis of human activities during their Council membership indicates they were conducting comprehensive intelligence-gathering operations. They studied our technologies, our military tactics, our political systems, and our economic structures. They learned everything we were willing to teach while developing superior alternatives in secret. Economic Minister Verolin's voice carried a note of panic. Director, are you suggesting that humans used their Council membership to prepare for this withdrawal? The evidence strongly supports that conclusion, Quindar replied. Human industrial development patterns, trade relationships, and diplomatic activities all indicate long-term planning for complete independence. This withdrawal was not an emotional response to expansion restrictions. It was the culmination of a decades-long strategic plan. Zethkar felt the weight of his position pressing down on him like a physical force. The Galactic Council had governed interstellar civilization for over 1,000 years. Member species looked to the Council for leadership protection and economic stability. But humans had demonstrated that Council authority was based on assumptions rather than reality. What options do we have? He asked quietly. Admiral Thexmore's expression grew grim. Military action appears inadvisable given the technological disparity. Economic sanctions would be ineffective since humans have achieved complete economic independence. Diplomatic pressure has already failed since they refused to acknowledge Council authority. The chamber fell silent as delegates absorbed the implications. For the first time in galactic history, the Council faced a situation where none of their traditional tools of governance were effective. Humans had systematically eliminated every form of leverage the Council possessed. Intelligence Director Quindar cleared her throat to regain attention. There is one additional development that requires immediate attention. 3 independent worlds have initiated diplomatic contact with human colonies, bypassing Council protocols entirely. This news struck the Assembly like a lightning bolt. The idea that species would conduct diplomacy outside Council oversight threatened the fundamental structure of galactic government. If other worlds followed the human example, the Council's authority would collapse completely. Which worlds? Zethkar demanded. The hegemony systems have established trade agreements for manufacturing equipment, Quindar reported. The Free Traders Union has negotiated shipping contracts that provide alternatives to Council-regulated trade routes. Most concerning, the Outer Rim Mining Collective has requested human military protection for their asteroid operations. Delegate Voss's skin color shifted to angry red. This is intolerable. These worlds are undermining the entire foundation of galactic law and order. Economic Minister Vera Lynn studied her own data streams with growing alarm. Council Prime, if this trend continues, we could see massive defections from Council membership. Species that have been restricted or limited by our policies may choose to follow the human example. The truth was that many Council members had complained about restrictions, limitations, and bureaucratic delays for decades. The Council's conservative approach to expansion, territorial rights, and technological development had frustrated numerous species. Humans had proven that alternatives to Council membership were possible. Admiral Thexmore transmitted another tactical display. We're also detecting increased military activity around several independent systems. It appears that human withdrawal has encouraged other species to strengthen their own defensive capabilities. Zethkar realized that the human withdrawal had triggered something far more dangerous than simple economic disruption. It had demonstrated that the Council's authority was neither absolute nor necessary. Species across the galaxy were beginning to question why they needed Council permission for expansion trade or technological development. "What are our intelligence estimates for further defections?" he asked. Quindar consulted multiple data sources before answering. Conservative estimates suggest that 12 species are actively considering withdrawal from Council membership. Aggressive estimates indicate that up to 30 worlds may choose independence within the next year. The chamber exploded into chaos again as delegates realized that their own worlds might be among those considering withdrawal. The economic disruption caused by human independence was spreading throughout Council space, while the demonstration of human technological superiority inspired other species to question Council leadership. Economic Minister Vera Lynn activated the Emergency Communication System. Council Prime. I'm receiving reports that the Zephyrian Trade Federation is requesting immediate negotiations with human colonies. They want to establish independent shipping agreements that don't require Council oversight. Zethkar felt his authority slipping away like sand through his fingers. The Galactic Council had maintained order through a combination of economic incentives, military deterrence, and political tradition. But humans had proven that superior technology and careful planning could overcome all three pillars of Council. Power. Options, he repeated more urgently. Admiral Thexmore's projection showed tactical displays of Council military assets scattered across dozens of systems. We could attempt to prevent other species from establishing independent contact with humans. President Helen Cross stood on the observation deck of Orbital Defense Platform 1, watching Earth's sunrise paint the planet in shades of gold and blue. 3 months had passed since humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Council, and the results exceeded even their most optimistic projections. Behind her, Admiral Paul Grant studied tactical displays showing human ships moving freely throughout local space, while Council fleets remained confined to their traditional patrol routes. Madam President, the final independence reports are ready for your review, her Chief of Staff announced. All human colonies have achieved complete self-sufficiency ahead of schedule. Helen turned from the viewport and walked to the command center, where holographic displays showed the state of human civilization. Green indicators marked every world and station, confirming operational independence from Council systems. Industrial production exceeded pre-withdrawal levels, while defensive capabilities had reached full operational status. What's the status of diplomatic contacts with independent worlds? She asked. Admiral Grant highlighted several systems on the strategic display. 17 species have established direct diplomatic relations with human colonies. The hegemony worlds signed comprehensive trade agreements yesterday. The Free Traders Union is requesting permanent human liaison officers for their commercial operations. The transformation had been remarkable. What began as humanity's withdrawal from Council oversight had evolved into the foundation of an alternative, galactic community. Species that had been frustrated by Council restrictions were discovering that bilateral diplomacy offered advantages that traditional galactic government could not provide. Dr. Walsh appeared through holographic projection from her laboratory on Luna Base. Madam President, I have updates on the quantum communication network expansion. We're now providing instantaneous communication services to 12 independent systems. The technology advantage is allowing us to offer capabilities that the Council cannot match. Helen studied the financial reports flowing across her displays. The human economy had not only survived withdrawal, but was experiencing unprecedented growth. Demand for human technology and services exceeded supply, while the elimination of Council oversight had removed bureaucratic barriers to development. Any response from the Council leadership? She asked. Admiral Grant pulled up intelligence summaries. Council Prime Zethkar called another emergency session yesterday. Intelligence reports suggest they're facing internal pressure from member species demanding action, but their options remain limited. The truth was that the Council had discovered the harsh reality of governing through assumed authority rather than actual capability. For centuries, member species had accepted Council leadership because no alternative existed. Humanity had proven that alternatives were not only possible, but potentially superior to traditional galactic government. Ambassador Jake Morrison materialized through the communication system from his ship approaching Nexus Prime. His image showed the confidence of someone representing a position of strength rather than weakness. Madam President, I'm ready to deliver our final diplomatic message to the Council. Helen nodded approvingly. Morrison's return to Council space would mark the end of humanity's transition period and the beginning of their new relationship with galactic civilization. The message he carried would reshape interstellar politics for generations. Ambassador, you have full authority to establish the new paradigm, she confirmed. Make it clear that humanity seeks cooperation rather than domination, but will not accept subordination to Council authority. The communication ended and Helen returned to watching Earth through the reinforced viewport. The planet that had once been considered a minor world on the galactic periphery now served as the capital of an independent civilization that surpassed Council capabilities in critical areas. Admiral Grant joined her at the viewport. Madam President, we're detecting increased military activity throughout Council space. Several member species are conducting readiness exercises while others are reducing their fleet commitments to Council operations. The implications were clear. The demonstration of human independence had triggered doubt about Council effectiveness throughout galactic civilization. Species that had relied on Council protection were reassessing their security arrangements, while others questioned whether Council membership provided sufficient benefits to justify the restrictions. How many worlds are actively considering withdrawal? Helen asked. Grant consulted his tactical displays. Intelligence estimates range from 20 to 40 systems, depending on how the Council responds to our independence. If they attempt to use force to prevent further defections, the number could double. Dr. Walsh's projection updated with new information. Madam President, we're receiving communication requests from species throughout the galaxy. Most want to establish independent diplomatic relations, while others are requesting technical assistance with defensive systems. Helen realized that humanity had accidentally triggered the largest political transformation in galactic history. Their withdrawal from Council membership had been intended to secure human independence, but the consequences were affecting every corner of known space. The communication system activated again, showing Ambassador Morrison entering the council chambers on Nexus Prime. Helen could see the assembled delegates through his visual feed, and she noted the tension and uncertainty in their postures. The confidence and authority that had characterized council sessions for centuries had been replaced by doubt and fear. Council Prime Zethkar looked older and more worn than Helen remembered from previous diplomatic encounters. The Vorthan leaders. Carapace showed the dark coloration that indicated stress while his movements lacked their usual authority. The human withdrawal had shaken the foundation of his political power. Ambassador Morrison. Zethkar began, "The Galactic Council hopes that humanity has reconsidered its position regarding council membership and galactic cooperation." Morrison's response was polite but absolute. "Council Prime. I represent the United Colonies of Humanity in establishing our new relationship with galactic civilization. Humanity seeks friendship and cooperation with all species, but will conduct these relationships as a sovereign and independent government." The chamber erupted with the same chaos Helen had witnessed during the original withdrawal announcement. Delegates shouted questions and accusations, while translation systems struggled to keep pace. But this time, the panic was more intense because 3 months of experience had proven that human independence was not a temporary negotiating tactic. Ambassador Morrison. Zethkar continued desperately. "Surely some arrangement can be reached that satisfies human concerns while maintaining the unity of galactic civilization." Morrison activated a holographic display that showed the current state of human space. Dozens of worlds and stations buzzed with activity, while defensive installations provided security that exceeded anything the Council could offer. Ships moved between systems using technology that surpassed Council capabilities in speed efficiency and stealth. Council Prime Humanity offers the following terms for future cooperation, Morrison announced. Individual species may establish diplomatic relations with human colonies through bilateral agreements. Trade and cultural exchange will be conducted between sovereign governments without council oversight. Military cooperation will be available to any species that requests assistance against external threats. The implications hit the assembled delegates like a physical blow. Humanity was offering an alternative to council membership that provided greater freedom and potentially superior benefits. Species could maintain their council relationships while also establishing independent connections with human civilization. Delegate Morakai of the Crystal Federation spoke with obvious desperation. Ambassador, this proposal would undermine the fundamental structure of galactic government. The Council has maintained peace and stability for over 1,000 years. Morrison's reply was devastating in its simplicity. Delegate Morakai, the Council has maintained peace through the threat of overwhelming force against species with inferior technology. Humanity demonstrates that peaceful independence is possible for civilizations with adequate preparation and capability. Helen watched through the communication feed as delegates absorbed the full meaning of Morrison's words. The Council's authority had always been based on technological and military superiority over member species, but humans had proven that patient. Development and strategic planning could overcome those advantages. Admiral Grant highlighted new activity on the tactical displays. Madam President, we're detecting communication attempts between several Council species and independent worlds. It appears that bilateral diplomacy is beginning without waiting for official approval. The transformation was accelerating beyond anyone's expectations. The demonstration of human independence had inspired species throughout the galaxy to reconsider their relationships with traditional authority structures. Bilateral agreements and independent cooperation were replacing centralized control. Dr. Walsh transmitted additional data showing the economic impact of the new paradigm. Human technology exports have increased by 400% since withdrawal.